Welcome back to the college lineup. I'm Eli.
And I'm Carson. This is episode number 17 of the college lineup coming at you. We got a great week ahead of us. We got opening weekend of conference play for college baseball. And we also have made it to conference tournament week in basketball. So, Eli, let's dive into the SEC basketball tournament. What do you say?
Let's do it.
All right, so this is kicking off this Wednesday. First game up, we have 16 LSU versus 9 Kentucky. And we're really quickly just going to hit high level, kind of our makeshift brackets, how we think it's going to play out, who's going to win what games, and just kind of roll through that really quickly. So first game is at 11:30 this Wednesday, number 16 LSU versus number 9 Kentucky. Eli, who do you think takes home the first game of the SEC basketball tournament?
I don't know. So I was thinking about it because LSU obviously is the worst team in the SEC. At least that's what record says. But I was trying to look it up, and I don't know if it pulled up or not. But let's see. Because see who they played last, because they actually really competed with them. I don't know if they won or no. They lost by 3 to Texas A&M. And Texas A&M has had a pretty good SEC slate. Mm-hmm. They're about middle to bottom of the pack. But when LSU is coming as a 16th seed, last in the SEC, and they only lose to Texas A&M by 3 in overtime, and they have competed a little bit. But I think overall they're not gonna be able to put much together. But I think they will also be very motivated because they're wanting to try and make a run, because obviously if you do somehow win the SEC tournament, you get a bid to the March Madness. So obviously I think for LSU, that's the only way they're going to be able to make March Madness is if they run the table and win the SEC championship. Don't think that's going to happen. I think Kentucky is going to take care of business, but Kentucky did start off their season pretty slow, and they struggled for a while. They ended up, they could have been ranked anywhere from 4 to 9, I think, but they lost their last game, if I'm not wrong, and so that dropped them all the way to 9th. Same with Vandy, and we'll talk about them in a second. Kentucky could have easily been in Vandy's spot, or Tennessee, but Kentucky did fall to 9. So I'm going to go with Kentucky here. I think Kentucky's going to have no issue with LSU.
Yeah, same here. I think Kentucky takes care of business pretty well here. Kentucky's kind of been up and down this season, coming off of a tough loss to Florida last weekend and another loss to A&M a couple weeks ago. But overall, they still have some good ones under their belt, and I think they will have no issues taking care of LSU and moving on to face Missouri on Thursday. So game number 2, right after LSU and Kentucky, we have number 13, Mississippi State versus number 12, a team that's currently on the bubble. Lots of talks about this team. Number 12, Auburn. Eli, what do you think?
So Auburn shouldn't even be in the March Madness talks. They have not played well, and I don't know why. And I know Carson did mention this to me before we started. They beat Florida, and you said, correct me if I'm wrong, but you did say that may be the only reason they get in is because they had that big win. It was at Florida. Right. So so they haven't really done much. Alabama's ran the table. They swept them this season, I think. Vandy beat them at Auburn. Most of the teams that played them actually beat them. I don't think they did not have a good SEC record. Obviously, they're 12th. But I just don't think they're going to be able to do it. They have just not impressed me much. I'll let Carson talk a little bit more about Mississippi State because he was talking about them right before we started recording. But I do think that Mississippi State's going to pull the one seed different upset here to play Tennessee. So I'm going to go with Mississippi State. I think that they can win, and I think they are going to win because I just don't think Auburn's going to be able to pull it out.
Yeah. I was telling Eli before we got on this podcast today that Mississippi State is my sleeper team for this SEC tournament. I think with the guard Hubbard, I think they are able to move the ball effectively. I think they are able to score a lot of points. They have been in a little bit of a rut lately. Tough loss to Georgia, big blowout loss to Florida, and even a loss to Missouri, and then Alabama before that. So a little bit of a down streak coming in. Yep. But this is a team that I got to see play UNA earlier in the season, and this team is very impressive. Now, granted, it was UNA. It wasn't like a true SEC test in middle of conference play. But this team is impressive. They do have the capability to win a lot of games, and I think they are my sleeper pick here. They did handle Auburn this season fairly easily, but this is an Auburn team that needs to probably win 2, if not 3 games to solidify a spot in March Madness. So I expect Auburn to come out swinging, but I think Mississippi State handles this game easily, and I think they go face Tennessee and give them a run of their money, and we'll get into that in a few minutes. But I like Mississippi State in this game, but do expect Auburn to come out swinging and fighting for their season because they really have to. So moving on, game number 3 on Wednesday, we have number 15 Ole Miss versus number 10 Texas. What do you think?
Texas has been on a tear this season. They've been doing pretty solid. Obviously, they're 10th in the SEC, but they have won against some big teams. They did beat Vandy. I think it was at Texas. They beat Vandy, and they've beat some other teams and gave some other teams a really good run for their money. So Texas could really be, if they won all those close games that they played, they could be a lot higher in the seeding. Ole Miss, they haven't impressed me much this season. Obviously, they are second to last seed in the SEC. So that speaks volumes. Ole Miss is always, you kind of think of them as one of the blue bloods, like Kentucky or Duke. Some of those, like 10 years ago or so, and up till recently, they've had some pretty good basketball teams. So I was a little surprised to see them not have a super good season this season, but I think ultimately Texas is going to take this game, and that's really all there is to it.
Yeah, I like that pick. I think Ole Miss is struggling. I think they haven't been able to find their footing all year. This is a Texas team that has pulled off some impressive wins, like you said, this year. Most notably, in my mind, comes to when they beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa and got the Cam Coleman commit the next day and the Hollywood Smothers flip the next day. So still that game sticks out in my mind from this season, but this is a Texas team that can win the big games, but honestly, I think they handle Ole Miss very easily, and they can go to move on to face Georgia on Thursday. So moving on to the last game on Wednesday, nightcap game, 8:30, we have number 14 South Carolina versus number 11 Oklahoma. Who you got?
I think Oklahoma is going to ultimately take this game. I realistically haven't even thought much about South Carolina this season. They haven't really had a game where it was just like, oh, they played really good. Like Texas, you could argue because they've had some really big wins. But, scrolling through your feed or checking the scores after, a Tuesday, Wednesday, or a weekend game, whatever that might look like, South Carolina just never really jumped out of the page on me. Now, they may have got a couple upsets. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't checked their schedule in a while. But I do think that they aren't super good. Obviously, they are 14th, again, like I said, about most of these teams that are a little lower seeded. But I think Oklahoma is going to handle them. Oklahoma has beat a couple good teams. Most notably, they did beat Vanderbilt at Vandy. Vandy brought it within like 3 at the end there, but they ultimately ended up losing. They were down by like 20 at one point. So if Oklahoma can shoot like they did against Vandy, they could really do well in this tournament and make a little bit of a run, but I'm ultimately going to pick them to beat South Carolina.
I'm going to agree with you there on Oklahoma. This is an Oklahoma team that's been playing really good basketball as of late. Big win against Texas this past weekend, good wins against Missouri, LSU, and Auburn over the past few weeks. They are playing very well. They should have no issues playing South Carolina, and I look forward to them moving on to face Texas A&M, on Thursday. So moving on. That was all the first round picks. Now we are moving on to Thursday, second round, March 12th picks. We have the game number 5, which is Missouri versus the winner of LSU and Kentucky. Now we both picked Kentucky, so we are looking at Kentucky versus Missouri here, 9 seed versus 8 seed. I'm going to go with Kentucky. As we mentioned earlier, I think this isn't a Kentucky team that we're used to seeing with basketball, but I think they ultimately do know how to find ways to win games. They've been competitive this season. They've really very few games have they been completely out of. So I like Kentucky pulling off the upset against Missouri here and moving on into the quarterfinals on Friday. Eli, what do you think?
I agree. I'm actually going to go the same route you are. I'm going to pick Kentucky here. Missouri has had a good season overall. I just think Kentucky is a little bit underrated. They've made some good runs against some good teams. So I think Kentucky is going to beat Missouri, and I think Kentucky's fighting to get maybe seated a little bit higher in the NCAA tournament. So I think Kentucky is going to beat Missouri and move on to the quarterfinals.
Absolutely. So moving on, game number 6 of the tournament. This is Thursday at 2 o'clock. We have game number 6, which is the winner of Mississippi State and Auburn versus Tennessee. So I took my sleeper team, Mississippi State, to move on and face Tennessee after round 1 into round 2. And I'm also going to take probably the biggest upset I'll take in this whole bracket. I'm going to take Mississippi State to upset the Volunteers. This is a Tennessee team that has played good basketball off and on this season, but ultimately they have not been playing up to their best as of late. They struggled against Vanderbilt this past weekend. They lost to Alabama a couple weeks ago, and Alabama did not score that many points. They only scored, I believe, 71 points, which an Alabama team to win with 71 points, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's a huge deal.
Yeah.
So this is a Tennessee team, and I believe they also lost to Missouri after that, or right before that. So this is a Tennessee team that is not playing their best basketball at the point of the year when you need to be playing your highest caliber level of basketball. So I said earlier, Mississippi State is my sleeper team in this tournament. I'm taking the Mississippi State Bulldogs to upset Tennessee in the SEC tournament. Eli, what do you think?
I don't think that's too far off. I think that's definitely a legible pick. I think it could very well happen. Me, on the other hand, while I do think it could happen, I just can't give Mississippi State the benefit of the doubt here. As much as I hate to say it, I think Tennessee is going to beat Mississippi State. Could be a close game, could be a blowout. I'm not 100% sure on that. Don't feel comfortable either way because anything can happen in the SEC tournament especially. But I'm going to go with Tennessee to beat Mississippi State here and also move on to get another rematch against Vandy and see who can pull out the series because they both won one game. So I think it'll be interesting to see. Mississippi State, like I said, does have a potential to go pretty far if they play as well as Carson thinks they can play. But I'm ultimately going to say their road ends in the second round on that Thursday. Having those back-to-back games, I think, is going to make it pretty tough on them. So give me Tennessee.
Absolutely. Great pick. And I do, if that were to happen, I do look forward to watching a Tennessee-Vanderbilt rematch.
Yeah.
In the quarterfinals there. I think that'll be great, especially in Nashville. A little in-state home rivalry. I think that'll be great. So moving on into the back half of the second round here on Thursday, we have game number 7, which is the winner of Ole Miss and Texas versus Georgia. Now, we both took Texas to win this game. That means we are looking at number 10 Texas versus number 7 Georgia. And I'm going Georgia here. I'm going Georgia big. This is a Georgia team that's been playing really well down the stretch. Big win against Mississippi State recently, even a bigger win against Alabama not too long ago. So this is a Georgia team that's playing really good at level of basketball right now. I think they're competitive. I think they're gritty. I think they find ways to win. They find ways to stop opponents defensively really, really well. They're really well prepared moving into these games. So I think having the bye is going to really be their benefit here. More time to prepare, more time to rest up, another day to watch these teams, and I think they have no problem taking care of Texas on Thursday.
I'm actually going the opposite. I'm picking the upset here. I'm going Texas over Georgia. I say that because I did watch the Georgia-Vandy game. I think it wasn't last weekend because we played Tennessee. I think it was the midweek. I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday. I think it might have been Tuesday night where Vandy struggled and Georgia struggled right there with them. Vandy ended up pulling it out. Georgia did have the lead for a while, and it was at Georgia. So after seeing that game, I do, obviously that's just a very small sample size and that doesn't mean a lot. But I do think Texas is a better all-around team in my opinion. So I'm going to definitely go with Texas to upset Georgia. Again, like I said last round, Texas is probably going to be really tired just like Mississippi State was. But where Carson picked Mississippi State to upset Tennessee, I'm going to go ahead and pick Texas to upset Georgia.
I like it. Moving on, we have game number 8, which is the winner of South Carolina and Oklahoma, now playing Texas A&M. So we both took Oklahoma in that opening round game. So we are looking at number 11 Oklahoma versus number 6 Texas A&M, the nightcap game here at 8:30 on Thursday night. I'm taking Texas A&M big in this game. We have UNA legend Jakari Lane leading the Texas A&M basketball team here. I love everything Texas A&M does. I'm a big fan of buckyball. I think they play at a very high level, very competitive, fun to watch team. So I think Texas A&M wins this game big.
I think Texas A&M is going to win too. I just don't think Oklahoma is going to have the firepower to be able to beat Texas A&M. Hopefully the UNA native Jakari Lane will go off and score a little bit. He's played pretty well. I think he's averaged about 11 points a game or so, and he starts most of the games, if not all. I haven't watched every single game, but of the ones I've seen, he's been out there quite a bit. So hopefully he makes UNA proud and goes out and shows the Oklahoma team what Texas A&M can do. So I'm going Texas A&M here. Again, I just don't think Oklahoma is going to have that firepower to be able to pull the upset.
And with that, we're going to move into our quarterfinal games here. So we are looking at game number 9. We have the winner of Missouri, and we both took Kentucky to move on to the first game. And so we have the winner of Kentucky and Missouri. For me, I took Kentucky with the upset here in Eli. I believe you did too. Took Kentucky over Missouri. Yep. So we're looking at Florida versus Kentucky. Now, this is where my Kentucky run kind of comes to a dead end and dies. I think this Florida team is too strong. They are putting up too many points. I mean, just recently they put up 111 against Arkansas, 108 against Mississippi State, who that's my sleeper team, no secret. And also beating Kentucky this past weekend. This Florida team is just too good for this Kentucky team to handle, and I look forward to them taking care of business easily against Kentucky.
I agree. I think Florida is going to take this one against Kentucky. Like Kentucky, they've always been a pretty, a really good basketball team for the longest time, and they've struggled here of late. They've all spent, I think, $22 million on NIL, so you'd expect them to be a little more competitive. But I could see Kentucky competing well with them, especially because it is in the quarterfinals, and they do want to try and get as far as they can to maybe help their March Madness stock. But with Florida not having to play any games, I think before that, I think they're going to be really well rested. But if you're a Florida fan, you hope you don't start off really slow, because while Kentucky may be a little worn out, they've had 2 games to warm up and get to this game. So I think I'm gonna pick Florida here to beat Kentucky.
Great pick. Moving on, game number 10, we have Vanderbilt playing for the first time. Now, I have Mississippi State beating Tennessee, so I have Mississippi State playing Vanderbilt in this game, and this is where my sleeper pick team comes to die. I like Vandy in this game. Vandy has had no problem this year taking care of business against Mississippi State, so I look for Mississippi State to be competitive, but ultimately I think Vanderbilt easily finds a way to win. This is a very strong Vanderbilt team, way stronger than we've seen in years past from Vanderbilt. It's been fun to watch. They find ways to win. Vandy's only issue this year is you probably staying healthy. So if they can stay healthy throughout this postseason and just play normal Vanderbilt basketball like they've shown this year, I think they have no problem beating Mississippi State on Friday.
Well, this is where our picks obviously differed. So I did pick Tennessee to beat Mississippi State. But in the rematch, I think Vanderbilt is going to reign supreme. I just think that we've been a tough matchup for Tennessee both games. We had them beat. We were leading the whole game in both games. Last game we played, we beat them at Tennessee. We never gave up the lead. I think we ended up only winning by 4, but we were up by as many as, I think, 17 at one point. And then when it was at Vandy, leading the whole game again, and they took the lead late, and we just kind of crapped the bed a little bit. So I think Vandy is going to run through Tennessee. I don't think it's going to be close at all, and I think that's where Tennessee's SEC hopes of winning the SEC ends, and they're just going to start preparing for March Madness. So I'm going to pick Vandy here to move on against Florida in the semifinals.
Moving on, we have game number 11. This is the first game for the Alabama Crimson Tide in the SEC tournament. So I guess we both have Georgia, number 7, playing number 2, Alabama. Now, I think this, other than a close championship game, I think this could very possibly well be the game of the tournament here. I think Alabama having the double bye could come in a little bit sluggish, especially if Georgia gets a big win against Texas. This is also a Georgia team that just beat Alabama a couple weeks ago by 10 points, so they're very well capable of beating Alabama. But ultimately, I have faith in Nate Oates to prepare this team for this game, and I'm just really, really confident in Alabama coming into the SEC tournament with that double bye. So with that, I'm going to take Alabama, but it's within 5 points.
So I actually picked Texas.
My fault.
No, it's fine. I picked Texas to beat Georgia. So I picked them to make it to the quarterfinals against Alabama. And I think Alabama is going to reign supreme. When they're on, which is how it's been the past, 3 or 4 years at least now. When they're on, and when they're off, they're off. But I think they're going to be on this game. First game of the quarterfinal, first game for them in the SEC tournament. Wanting to prove that they got the second seed and it wasn't a fluke. They started off the season pretty slow, but they really finished the back half of the season out strong. So I'm going to pick Alabama to beat Texas here and move on to the semifinals.
With that, we're moving on to the last game here in the quarterfinal round. We have Arkansas playing for the first time, and I have them playing number 6 Texas A&M, and I'm also going to take Texas A&M to beat Arkansas in an upset in the SEC tournament. Like I said earlier, I'm a big fan of buckyball, big fan of Jakari Lane, and big fan of the basketball they play. This is an Arkansas team that has been playing okay as of late. We saw a little bit of a struggle against Missouri, struggle win, but we did see them handle Texas pretty well a couple weeks ago. So I look for Texas A&M and Arkansas. I look for this game to be very close. I think it comes down to the last 5 minutes of the game, but ultimately I think Texas A&M gets it done.
Good pick there. I think I'm ultimately going to go with Arkansas to beat Texas A&M. Arkansas has just been right there in about top 15 the whole season for the most part. Really been back and forth between one of the top seeds, and obviously they did get a top 4 seed, but they were up, at this 2 seed. Florida kind of ran away with it early. So Florida, there was never really a doubt that they were going to be first place. But then Arkansas and Alabama kind of went back and forth for a minute to see who would actually get the number 2 seed. I think Arkansas is going to put it together with it being their first game in the quarterfinals. I think they are going to beat Texas A&M.
I like it. Good pick. Moving on now, we are in the semifinals on Saturday, March 14th. I have number Florida playing number 4 Vanderbilt here. I think this has the capability of being another great game, but ultimately I am going to take the Gators in this one. I think this Florida team is too strong. Their level of basketball they play is too high, but I do think these are very 2 evenly matched teams. They're both, all their stats fall in very similar range, so I think it'll be a very close game, especially being in Nashville. I think will work in Vanderbilt's favor, but ultimately this Florida team is just too strong for me to pick against them, so I'm going to take Florida to win in the semifinals against Vanderbilt and move on to the championship on Sunday. Eli, what do you think?
I'm going to go with the upset. I think Vanderbilt's going to get their lick back after losing to Florida at the beginning, at the first couple games of the SEC this season. They had Florida on the ropes, just couldn't pull it out, and Florida had a 7-point play with a foul, a hook and hold, and then they made a 3. So that went a 7-0 run without Vandy even getting the ball back, and that really changed the way the game was going, all the momentum. So I think Vandy is going to get their get back and beat Florida here and move on to the championship game.
Moving on to semifinal game number 2, I have Alabama playing Texas A&M, and this is where buckyball runs out of juice. I think that Arkansas game, the late game the night before, just really takes a lot out of them. It's really hard for them to turn the page to the next day and come against a strong Alabama team. So I think A&M, like I said earlier, beats Arkansas in the quarterfinals, but I think they completely run out of steam against Alabama. And I look for Alabama to win this game big and move on into the championship. Eli, who you got?
I think Alabama is going to beat Arkansas, which is the team I picked. I picked them to beat Texas A&M in the quarterfinals. I think Alabama is going to have no issue with Arkansas. Arkansas coming off a hard-fought win against Texas A&M. I just don't think that they're going to have the energy to go up against this Alabama team who, like I said, again, if they're on fire, they're scoring close to 100 points a game. So I'm going to go with Alabama to go to the championship game. Yeah, that's who I got.
So now we're moving into our championship game picks here. This one hurts the heart a little bit, but I am going to pick Florida to win the SEC tournament and beat Alabama. When Alabama and Florida met earlier this year, there wasn't any conversation of who was going to win this game. Florida completely handled Alabama. They were more than prepared. Alabama could not do anything to stop. And it was just one of those games where Alabama couldn't find any shots to fall. And when that happens, Alabama struggles offensively, and they do not come close to winning. The only exception being that Tennessee game where they were able to win with only 71 points scored.
Yep.
But ultimately, I think Florida just outmatches Alabama here, and I think Florida will win the SEC tournament this year.
So for me, I picked Alabama and Vandy to be in the championship. I do think Alabama's luck runs out in the championship game. They go on 2 burners in the quarterfinals and the semifinals, and beat their opponent by 10 or more points, and just go absolutely ham and score at least 95. But in the championship game, I think it's going to be a game like they barely won when they scored 71, except when you do that against Vandy, you're not going to be able to win. So I'm going to go with Vandy here, and I think it's going to be a close game, but I think Vandy's going to pull it out. So I'm going Vandy to win the championship game. Carson is going with Florida, and that's all for our SEC brackets. Welcome back to the weekly hunt.
Welcome to the weekly hunt segment of episode number 18 of the College Lineup. If you are unfamiliar with this segment, this is where we talk about everything University of North Alabama athletics. So right now we are in the middle of baseball and softball season. So let's go ahead and talk about these baseball and softball teams, starting with baseball here. Since we last talked about UNA baseball here, they went and played Southern Miss this past weekend in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, who is currently ranked 10 in the nation here. UNA baseball was hard fought this weekend, but ultimately, probably as expected, Southern Miss did run the table for the sweep. Eli, are there any impressions from this UNA baseball team from this weekend?
Yeah, again, like when they played Ole Miss in the midweek game, actually 2 days before Friday, so Wednesday, they lost 5-8. So again, that was at Ole Miss. It's like gives you some hope, like we had talked about a little bit on last episode. If you want to know a little bit more in depth of what we talked about there, just go back and listen to that. I don't feel like explaining it again. But I do think that we do have some hope here. Southern Miss is a great team, obviously 10th in the nation, and they'll probably move up 1 or 2 after a sweep. Although it was against UNA, sweeping anybody is tough, is a tough ask, especially because you have to play 3 games back to back to back. So I think overall UNA can be happy with how they performed, at least on the first game. They ended up losing 4-9. But it was really close there most of the game. They struggled a little bit Saturday, only being able to push across 1 run, and then Sunday they did lose 2-9. So overall, not as good of a showing as you would have hoped. But when you're playing a top 10 team in the nation, I think sometimes, you kind of expect to lose those. You don't want to, but it's not the end of the world if you do lose those. So I think overall it's a plus, that there's something you can look forward to, that you can score against a number 10 team in the nation. But other than that, that's really all I have for those 3 games. We do play Jacksonville State tomorrow, or whenever this is posted. It'll probably already be gone, because we'll probably post this on Wednesday. So it'll probably already be over. You probably know the outcome to that game, but I think that's going to be a more close game, and I'm hoping we can pull that one out. It is at home, so that would be a big win. We are 7-9 right now, but 7-4 at home, so not an awful start by any means.
Yeah, I pretty much just want to echo everything you said. Great points. I don't really think anyone expected UNA to go in there and shock the world and maybe take a couple games, take the series, but did look for them to go and compete. We saw some good, saw just a little bit of just kind of running out of steam towards the end of the weekend too. I think the hardest thing to do with this is the level of pitching that you see versus these ASUN opponents and these non-conference opponents we've seen so far. Nowhere near the caliber of what we saw against Southern Miss. So really hard to adjust on the fly like that, especially when you probably won't see that level of pitching throughout the rest of the year until maybe you get deeper in a conference play or into the ASUN tournament. So really just nobody you can fault there. It's just something you're not used to seeing, and that level of pitching you're just not experienced with. So it's going to be tough to score some runs. I know we scored 4 runs in the first game, and then I don't think we even scored more than 2 throughout the rest of the weekend. So just tough scoring runs there overall. Saw a lot of good, saw a lot of bad. I think it was a great experience for the team. It's only going to provide better experiences and better knowledge about this team as we move forward into conference play versus Lipscomb this weekend. And I look for them to get a bounce back tomorrow, since we're recording this on Monday, like you said, against Jacksonville State. That's a little semi-rival for UNA. Yep. Used to be a bigger rival, but still a semi-rival on the schedule here. So good bounce back win there at home, hopefully, and then we can move on and take it to Lipscomb and Nashville this weekend. So with that, I think we move on here to softball, who is just out there putting it to some teams, sitting at 17-4 4 on a 7-game win streak, 7-0 at home. But they have a great test tomorrow, Eli. They are playing Ole Miss here in Florence. How do you think this game's going to go?
I don't know, honestly, but I do think with it being a home game, obviously that's going to give a little bit of an edge to the UNA Lions, but it's going to be tough. It is Ole Miss. It is a SEC school, but like we talked about last episode when we played Alabama a couple of years back, they gave them a pretty good run for their money at UNA. And two, when we play SEC teams at home, it typically brings a pretty good crowd, I would say. I think there was quite a few people there at the last game a couple years ago whenever we played Alabama at home. So it's going to be exciting to see. I'm not going to be able to make it to that game because it starts right as I get off of work, but I'm sure there'll be quite a good crowd there just because it is a SEC team. I would love for UNA to stay on that undefeated tear at home and bring their win streak to 8-0. I just don't know if they're going to be able to do it. I'm not confident enough to say either way whether I think they're going to win or lose because softball, just like baseball, it's a crazy sport and anything can happen. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I may throw it on the TV when I get home and keep up with it a little bit and see if UNA can start 8-0 at home.
Hey, I like UNA in this team. This Ole Miss team actually just got swept by Alabama this past weekend in Oxford, so not much they come off there. They're kind of at a low point momentum-wise. I like UNA to win this game. I think it'll be fun to watch regardless, and you're still getting great experience there. What I'm more worried about is as soon as we get finished with this game tomorrow, we have to go to Memphis on Wednesday, and that is where I worry about this team running out of steam. This is a team that has done okay on the road. You know, they've played more neutral sites this year than anything, but true away team, they've been kind of average. So I look for them to get the win tomorrow versus Ole Miss, and then I think Memphis Wednesday might get the better of this UNA team. But ultimately, we have a big weekend here with Central Arkansas coming for the first ASUN series of the year for UNA softball. And like we said, UNA is a team that knows how to win at home, so I look for them to bounce back from Memphis this weekend and take it to Central Arkansas and hopefully, fingers crossed, take the series. So,
been a fun watch for UNA softball so far, and baseball has been pretty fun to watch too because they've played some tough competition. So I think that's all we got for the baseball and softball segment. Don't have to talk about men's basketball. We are eliminated, but I did want to point out real quick that we were talking about the women's game while it was going on last episode. They ended up losing that game, so their season is also finished. So for the most part, we'll probably keep talking about baseball and softball until their seasons come to a close. And then if we, for some reason, get any cool football updates or anything like that, or basketball commits or anything like that, we will update you guys on that as well. Welcome back. Now we are just going to go over a few notable games so far this past weekend, so a few upsets. And a few actually weekend series upset wins. And then we'll get into rapid fire here in a minute. So, Carson, what games are you wanting to point out first?
I think the biggest starting point is obviously Sacramento State here, taking the series at number 2, LSU. I mean, we've already hit on the past couple of weeks. Is this LSU team, should they be on watch with losing these midweek games and struggling? And this is just kind of the biggest shock of the year so far, in my opinion, is first game, LSU comes out, wins 15-4 in 7 innings, and you're thinking, this is going to be an easy series lock, kind of put the subs in, take it easy. Sacramento State said, nuh-uh, come out and win 4-5 on Saturday, and then come out and win 6-1 on Sunday, taking the series to number 2, LSU. I mean, that stands out to me to start the most. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, LSU ended up going 1-4 that whole week because they did lose their midweek game as well. So going 1-4, being the number 2 team in the nation is not the best look. It looks like they ended up dropping to number 13 in the polls. They dropped 11 ranks in the national polls because they had such a rough week. And I think that's a great place to start off because like we said, we talked about it last episode. Is this LSU team a little bit of fraudulent? And as we've seen so far, especially last week, we're starting to see maybe they are after all a little bit of fraud starting, especially from those preseason rankings. Next series I wanted to point out, High Point beat Florida. They actually won 2 out of 3. So they won Friday and Saturday. So Florida also fell in the rankings as well. I think they're now ranked number 18. Not 100% sure what they were ranked beforehand. But High Point looks like a pretty solid team. They ended up winning the first 2 and losing the third one, so could not quite sweep Florida. But getting the series win against a ranked Florida team, being an unranked High Point team, I think High Point and Sacramento State both have some things going for them to start the season.
Absolutely. Another one that I wanted to point out real quick, this last one I got to point out, is I called it last week. I took Wright State to win the series against Tennessee, and they made it real close for me. They got walked off the first game on Friday night there, but then they ultimately did take the Sunday game there. Very competitive Wright State team.
Yep.
Every game was great. Went about how I thought, just couldn't pull it out there in Knoxville, but they were competitive, and they did show they were capable of beating Tennessee. So
Yep.
just thought I'd point that out there. Tennessee did struggle with Wright State, but also this Wright State team, it's an upset, but it's not an as shocking upset as we look at LSU in Florida,
Yep.
but still notable for me to point out.
Yeah, Wright State have had some good like regional teams the past couple of years. So definitely not a team to take lightly either. So all of those 3 teams between Wright State, Sacramento State, and High Point, you got some pretty good teams that have not cracked the rankings yet. But I would not be surprised in the next couple weeks if at least one of these teams don't end up cracking the top 25 soon.
Absolutely. So with that, what do you say we move into our rapid fire pick segment?
Let's do it. Oh, wrong button.
There we go. There's the fire. So if you're new here, this is just our last segment we do, is where we do 5 rapid fire series winner picks for college baseball. So we pick who we think's going to win the series, and we do it pretty quickly, and we pick our 5 best series that we think is going to be happening this weekend. So first up, we have unranked Alabama sitting at 14-3 overall record at number 21 Kentucky, who's sitting at 14-2. Who you got?
Give me Alabama to take the series. I think they're going to pull the upset against Kentucky. I like Kentucky. They're good at baseball, like their cream uniforms as always. But I do think that Alabama is going to pull the upset of sorts. Alabama's been pretty good at baseball the past 2 years or so. So I do think that they are going to win 2 out of 3 against Kentucky.
I do too. I like Alabama in this game. I think Kentucky does get one of the games, but I think Alabama overall will take the series. You've heard of LeBron in basketball, but you got to watch out for Justin LeBron at Alabama. So I like Alabama win 2 out of 3. So I'm taking Alabama. Eli's taking Alabama. Moving on, we have number 3, Mississippi State, and number 5, Arkansas. Who you got? This is a good matchup right here.
I have Arkansas.
Okay.
I think Arkansas is going to pull this one out. I think it's going to be a hard-fought 3 games, and I think Mississippi State's probably going to take one. But I do think Arkansas is going to pull this upset of sorts because still first weekend of SEC play, don't really know where everybody should really be sitting right now. So I'm going to go with Arkansas to beat Mississippi State here.
I'm going to go sort of what you said, just flipped. I'm going to take Mississippi State to win 2 out of 3. I think the fact that this is in Fayetteville does help because Mississippi State is a tough place to play. They bring a lot of fans. They bring a lot of energy to the ball field. But ultimately, it's in Arkansas. But I still think Mississippi State gets it done. They're 14-2 on the year right now. So overall, looking really good, looking really sharp. So I like State in this game. So moving on. This one's kind of a little bit of a curveball, but I think it'll be a good pick. Number 16, Coastal Carolina, playing Appalachian State, who's 10-5.
I think Appalachian State's pretty sneaky good here this season, but I'm going to go with Coastal Carolina. App State may pull out a game, but I'm still going to go with Coastal Carolina. They've looked pretty solid this season so far. I'm not going to stray away from them, so I'm going to go Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, I think Appalachian State makes it close, but ultimately Coastal Carolina is known for their level of baseball, so I'm going to take Coastal Carolina in this game Going back to the SEC, we have our fourth series. Here we have Ole Miss, 15-2, playing number 2, undefeated 15-0, Texas.
That's going to be
a tough one.
That is going to be a tough
one.
game. I think I'm going to go with Ole Miss to take that SEC weekend opener against Texas. I think Texas is good. Don't get me wrong. Still a little salty at the fact that they were number 2 ranked jerseys for those playing jerseys. So maybe that has a little to do with it. Not really. I just think Texas is not going to be able to pull this one out. I think Ole Miss is going to with their powder blue jerseys.
This one's tough for me. I could sit here and make a good case for both of these teams, but I'm going to go Texas just for the fact that they are undefeated. They've looked super solid so far. I do think Ole Miss is going to get one of these games, but I think Texas will pull it out. It is in Texas, too. That's probably going to help just a little bit. You know, it's not like a football or basketball where it really makes a huge difference, but to some extent it will. It's in a ballpark they're familiar with dimensions they're familiar with. So I'm going to go Texas here, but I think that is probably the series of the week for me. Yeah. Texas is number 2 in the nation. Cannot believe Ole Miss is unranked, but that will very likely change with how close these games are going to be in Texas this past weekend. So moving on to our last series here, we have number 20 Florida State, who's 13-2, versus number 12 Wake Forest, who's 15-1.
Give me Wake Forest here. They've had a pretty good seasons here the past couple of seasons or so. I think they're going to do really well, especially to start conference play. So I am going to go with Wake Forest to beat Florida State.
I am too. I like Wake Forest in here. They're a great team. Only lost one game so far this season, so obviously they've shown they're very capable of playing at a high level this early in the season. So I like Wake Forest taking 2. I don't think they get the sweep, but I think they take 2 out of 3 versus Florida State.
I agree. Did that matter?
And with that, I think that is going to wrap up number 18. Wait. Cut.
That's right.
And with that, I think that'll be a wrap on episode number 18 of the College Lineup.
Yep.
As always, Eli, it's been a pleasure. If you are not following us on Instagram, please go shoot us a follow over there. That is where we recap all of our rapid picks of the week, and our episode summaries go on there as well.
SEC tournament picks will probably be on there as well.
Absolutely, yep. If you want to keep track, see how our brackets hold up this week throughout the SEC tournament, please check us out over there. If you are not following on YouTube as well, we have started posting video content on there, so feel free to go subscribe to YouTube as well. And if you enjoy the podcast, share it with a friend. Please like us and rate us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube, wherever you are listening and or watching. And with that, we will see you next time.